This is the interior of what is the noisiest, uncomfortable, horrific place to sit. When we got to the end of the bypass, he said, "I'm expecting more from that." So, since then, I spent all this money. It's been 5 years since I've done this, and reading this list is upsetting me, quite frankly. I can't believe I did this. Good morning, good afternoon and good evening. Welcome back to the channel. This one's going to be a bit of a different one for you because I want to talk about life choices, being wise and being sensible. Something which of course is a strong trait within me. Now, when I look back over the years, when I was about 20, 21 years old, I got really involved in cars and in particular modifying them. And what I decided to do, rather than invest some money and put it in a pension like I was telling my clients to do, was I decided to spend it elsewhere, whereas potentially something like property might have been a better idea. This is a particularly nice house, certainly not the sort of thing I could have afforded. I'm thinking probably something a little bit more like this 2-bedroom terrace house, which is actually a through-by-light property, which means it's got windows at not only the front, but also the back. This property is for sale at the moment, and I'm going to give away how much I spent on the Subaru here, for £85,000, and has a rental potential of between £600 to £700 a month, which will give you a return of around 10% a year. That, my friends and family, is a wise investment decision. However, what I decided to do was I got all of my money and I spent it on this. So here we have it. This is my huge financial mistake. It is a 1999 Subaru Impreza Type R WRX STI JDM import. And if you understand all of that, you're in the right place because I'm going to get real techie with this build. This car I've had for 13 years and I've done around about 50,000 miles in it, and the majority of the mileage was done within about the first fortnight because I could not put this thing down. So a lot of people have got a poster in the bedroom of the car that they've always wanted. It might be a Countach or an F40 or a Lamborghini of some sort, whatever it might be. I always liked the Impreza P1, and this isn't a P1, and there's a reason for that. I couldn't afford one, so I ended up buying what is basically the thing they built the P1 off. So you've got holy grails of Imprezas. You have got the 22B, which is like the best Impreza you can buy in my humble opinion. You've got the P1, then you've got the Type R, then you've got the Type RA, and then you've got loads of different variants. But the two-door versions are 22B, P1, Type R. They're the only two doors that you can get. Unless you're in the US market, you get 2.5 RS and all that sort of stuff, but we're not talking about those. We're talking about the proper ones. They have also brought out a new one recently called the P25, which is about £600,000, and when they released it, I thought, good, that's going to help me with my value. Anyway, really different one to value. I've absolutely no idea what it's worth, but I don't care, because at the moment, I still don't think I want to sell it, but I've been off and on with this for literally years. Do you want to talk about it? Let's go from bumper to bumper, and I'll tell you where £85,000 has gone, albeit over 13 years, man maths. You go skiing every year, it's actually cheaper to build one of these. Just don't go skiing. I brought the spec list. It's upset me to read it, but here it is. Shall we start off with the most important part? Under the bonnet. So the heart of the beast. I cannot tell you how much investment has gone into this part of the car. So this is where most of the money got sapped up, so we may as well start with it because it's exciting. But let me just tell you about the journey of this. So when I bought this car, it was bone stock. Besides, it had a flamer kit on the exhaust, which sold it to me, frankly. Had a button on it, kick out 10-foot flames. I'll take it. I then bought my mate's Impreza, which was a Type RA, because he had a fully forged engine, all really built, all really good. So I gave him a deposit on the car, and then when he drove it over to my house to conclude the deal, he did cartwheels on it over a moor top. So the car was absolutely goosed. Now the engine was okay, so I ended up putting that engine in this car anyway. I just bought the engine off him. Then we ran it up to about, we say it was about 350, 400 horsepower. We don't know, no one really knew, we never rolling roaded it. It was great and good fun. Then the car unfortunately sat in the garage for a few years and didn't do anything. That then led on to this ridiculous build that you see in front of you. So this is a new engine. I'm going to talk you through what I did to it. Let me get the list. It's appalling. Are you ready for this? So we'll start off with the bottom end. This car has got a billet crankshaft, which was £2,160 for a crankshaft. However, the guy who was building the engine told me I should do it, so I did it. The guy that built this engine is a guy called Graham Sweet. Graham Sweet, name drop, used to build the engines for Colin McRae in his ProDrive years. And he doesn't build engines for the public, but I was a financial advisor, had a bit of a chat with him, gave him a bit of cheeky advice, and he managed to build me an engine. So, yeah, you can't get one of these. It's got arrow rods. It's a stroker kit, so it's a 2.1. They were about 1,100 quid, 1,200 quid. Amiga pistons. It's got a bronze O-ring conversion. So when people joke about, oh, I'm going to do a head gasket delete on my Impreza, I've done it. This car has no head gaskets, and essentially what it's got is a machined bronze O-ring into the cylinder heads, and it does something with the other bit, and then it vents air out, and it deletes the head gasket. So I've got one of those. It's also got a, I mean, this is where it gets stupid, we've got bigger head studs in there so you can run more boost. It's got de-squished cylinder heads, baffled sump kits, so if you go around the corner, they all don't slop about everywhere. It's got Kevlar timing belt, obviously. Vernier pulleys, that's how you pronounce it. An ARP block stud kit. Cuso engine mounts, I forgot I did that. That must be why it drives like such a dog. And then it's got a Bacala oil feed and cap. That oil cap in there was 100 quid and a lot of labour. So that's pretty much the bottom end bit. The heads, so you can run different heads on these cars. Basically, the holy grail of the heads are JDM big port heads, which you got off like a 2005 STI. So it's got big port heads, and I thought, no, what I'll do now is I'll modify the heads. So they have been ported and flowed. It's got Supertech valves, springs and guides. They're about £2,000. It's got DLC anti-friction coated buckets. Graham said they were a good idea. And it's got new age manifold and AVCS wiring conversion on it. That is pretty much the engine build. This engine is built for running serious horsepower, but it doesn't run that much. It only runs 521.6 horsepower, which doesn't sound like big numbers. If you're watching in the USA, you're going to go, British, typical, no power. This comes into boost so hard. So let's talk about the turbo. This turbo is, it's been 5 years since I've done this, and reading this list is upsetting me, quite frankly. I can't believe I did this. Anyway, it's got an Owen Development turbo on there. So Owen Development is a really good company. And I bought this turbo off a track car, and it'd done a couple of seasons, and I thought that turbo is normally 3 or 4 grand, and I think I gave 1,500 quid or 2 grand for it. And the reason I did that is because it's got a custom billet compressor wheel. It's ceramic coated, which we like, and it is fit in a rotated position. So normally your turbo sits behind the engine near cylinder 4. They get really hot, and that's why normally pistons on cylinder 4 tend to go on an Impreza. But we put a rotated kit on it for 2 reasons. Number 1, it was too big really to squeeze into that position, and number 2, it looks sexy in it. So we went with that. Right, that was expensive. What else have we got? So the intercooler is a HDI intercooler. It's flipped. Right, so this is a nightmare. In order to run, I forgot about all of this, it's all coming back to me. In order to reduce the lag as much as possible, you want to reduce as much pipe work as possible in the engine. The standard fit intercooler normally sits on here on an Impreza. Now, I wanted a bigger intercooler, so you can't fit it there, so I went for a front mount intercooler, but normally the pipes come out of the bottom of a front mount intercooler. And thus means more pipe work to get all the way back up to the manifold, etc. So what we did is we flipped the intercooler on its head and ran the pipework shorter. But in order to do that, we cut through the chassis leg. Well, it's not quite through it, but it's very close. So it's all custom pipework, which reduces the lag, which means that it comes into boost really hard. Subsequently, since we've done all of this, we now run the car on methanol as well, which again means it comes in hard in boost. The torque figures are quite high on the car as well. In order to run methanol, we had to run Teflon braided fuel lines from front to rear on the car, because otherwise the methanol starts to eat away in the standard fuel lines or rubber fuel lines. So you've got to do it properly. That was about £3,000 for the fuel lines fitted. I don't want to spend any more time on it here, but I need to tell you about the gearbox. 6-speed Hawkeye DCCD gearbox, which has got a longer fourth gear, which means that if you do a quarter-mile run, you don't have to change from fourth to fifth. Have I done many quarter-mile runs? No. So I did that. It's got a twin-plate exceeder clutch in there as well, so I've done that. And it's got different bushings on the gearbox as well, so it's like a really tight throw. Are you bored yet? Because if you're not, you're going to really like this next bit. Follow me. Right, so fueling is really important, as we already know, and the braided lines run all the way along to the back of the car where I put a fuel cell in it. So what I wanted to do here was spend more money for no reason whatsoever. So I took out the original fuel tank, did an alloy flat floor in the car, which made lightness, and then put in this 60-litre fuel cell. You've got a lift pump in there, which is a 270, and then you've got a Bosch 044 that then feeds into a swirl pot, which then feeds down the rest of the car. Now, the reason that we've done this is because with Imprezas, they've got a nightmare problem where if you've got less than sort of a third to a quarter of a tank and you go around a corner, you get something called fuel surge, which basically means it ain't getting the fuel from the tank up to the engine. And often it goes bang, 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 and you look really stupid. It happened on the bypass to me, racing a Honda Civic, and he beat me. And I had mates in the car. So, since then, I spent all this money. Yet to see him again, but when I do, it's on. So that's pretty much where I've wasted a load of money in the back of the car. Shall we just have a look around it and have a look at the cosmetics? So cosmetically, this car has had many, many changes over the years. So I went through a phase of everything being pink to make the ladies wink. And then I went through a phase of everything being blue. And I went through a phase of doing just about everything that I could do to make this car look as chavvy as possible. And then we put it into storage for a while, and then I thought I've always wanted a wide arch Impreza. So I then put those riveted arches on that you get from Japan, which kind of looked all right. To be fair, actually looked quite cool, to be fair, I liked that. But then what we realised is that the car was starting to rot from the bottom to the top. So you've got these rear tubs in here, which are a nightmare. When you're looking at an Impreza for sale, look around this area and look around this area. Any bubbling? Chances are your tubs are mine were. So what we decided to do at that point was go, right, let's go for it, full nut and bolt rebuild. So we completely stripped the car, we cut off the rear quarters, and we put this wide arch kit on it. Now the thing that annoys me is people go, oh, is that a 22B, mate? Either not knowing that it isn't, or knowing that it isn't and just wanting to be a wind-up. It isn't a 22B. I'm not trying, it's not even blue. So I'm not trying to make it look like a 22B. A 22B is 40 millimeters wider than a standard Impreza. This is 60. 22Bs are for peasants. I decided to go for the wider kit because of the two different versions. You either get 30 mil or 60 mil. I thought I can't go narrower than a 22B because that is just rubbish and it's cheaper. Can't possibly be doing this. So it was first painted in black, a colour called 18L, which is like got a gold fleck in it, which I thought would look good, but it kind of didn't make the arches stand out like I wanted them to. And also, the company that fit this kit originally and painted the car, honestly, the worst experience I've ever had, ever. And it was the kit producers that put me in touch with that company. So obviously I had words with them about it. The paint was shocking. Like if you run your hand across it, you get blisters. It was just orange peel everywhere. It was really flat, really dull. The guy was rude, obnoxious, pushing for money, telling me I'd have to close the business if I didn't pay up front, all sorts of stuff. It was a horrific experience. Anyway, we then painted the car in black with him and ran it for a while, and we noticed that all the arches started to fall off the car. So I then put it away again, thinking I'm done with this car. And then in lockdown, we decided no, give it another lease of life. So I took it to my mate at Cosmetic Car Care in Keighley, Danny Appleby, said I'd mention you, and we fully stripped it again and worked out where he'd gone wrong, which he'd basically used bathroom sealant to put the arches on the car. So when it moved about, of course it was going to flex. Anyway, it's now on rock solid, is that? Also by cutting away the rear arches, less weight, more power. Speaking about power, this car is 520 horsepower, but it weighs 1.2 tons, there or thereabouts. So the thing I like to talk about in the pub is power to weight ratio, because that's exciting. This is the same as a Pagani Zonda or a Lamborghini Aventador in a bean can. It is an absolute hoot to drive. Genuinely, I absolutely love this thing. It's just, I never drive it. I never have the chance. It runs on only V-Power and methanol and life support, and the seats are for a 12-year-old boy, so it squeezes my arse as I get into them. It never gets used, but this year I am going to use it. I'm going to get it on a track, and the reason for that is because I need to clear these brakes off more than anything, because it's been sat for so long. Brake-wise, we've got AP Racing brakes at the front, with DS5 2500 pads, I think, from memory, something like that. It bloody stops. And then at the back, we have got Brembos off a new age with some other fancy discs, which I can't remember what they are because I've not got my list on me. All very expensive, but it stops on a dime. You've also got a switch on the inside of the car, so you can move that brake bias from the front to the rear of the car. It is exceptional on a track. Talking about the inside, should we have a quick look? Okay, so in a nod to keeping things chavvy, I've kept my Pioneer head unit. There are no speakers. I should take it out for weight, really, but I'm just not that boring. But now I've said it, I kind of want to take it out. This is the interior of what is the noisiest, uncomfortable, horrific place to sit. I took this car to a place called The Motorist. It was some point last year with Joe, and it was awful. Awful. There's no air conditioning. All you can hear is the sound of fuel pumps behind you. When you're on boost, there's a button here, you press it and you get anti-lag. It's just bang, 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 bang. And then the sound of the turbo, all that sort of jazz. It's quite the place to be. Anyway, from a race car perspective, which I keep claiming this to be even though I don't race it, it is cool. It's easy to get in and out of because you can remove the steering wheel. I did buy a cheap Boss off eBay. Bad move, bad move. This is nice and solid and keeps the wheel locked on, which you need when you've got that sort of power and that sort of torque. It's got a Cyvex ECU. I don't even want to talk about how much that was, 10 grand. And the dash and GPS tracking, which is on here somewhere as well. It's kind of got everything set up. So the information you can get off that dashboard, I have absolutely no idea what it's saying, but I know it's really good. Seats are carbon fibre. It's got racing harnesses, obviously. This is a hydraulic handbrake, and the reason that I've got hydraulic handbrake in this car is actually for launching it. People think, oh, what, do you think you're a drifter? No, it's for launching the car. So what you do is normal handbrake off, into first gear. We'll pretend it's in. And then you pull the handbrake back, which then locks up everything, and you press this little button on the side here. And what that will do is it'll activate launch control, which then sits it at, I think I've got it set at about 4,500, 5,000 revs, anti-lag on, lots of pops and bangs, let go of the clutch, and destroy all your drive shafts all in one go. It's brilliant. I can't tell how many drive shafts I've gone through. I've got spare drive shafts for this car. You need them. I've also got a spare gear set for the gearbox. It all got a bit out of hand. Anyway, it's awful. It's got a nice roll cage, which makes it difficult to get in and out of, especially when you start to get a bit old and fat. And those seats, as I said before, are, I think, this wide. And I am a smidge wider. So yeah, I joke, it is amazing to drive. It corners, it hurts to corner. It feels like your face is getting pulled off. It hurts to accelerate, it hurts to brake. It's absolutely savage. The only thing that I want to do with this car, potentially next year, well, there's a couple of things I like to do with it, really. That engine is good for big power and 520 in big power. So the other options we've got moving forward is potentially to stick a set of race cams in it, because it's just on standard cams at the moment, which will then increase the horsepower, maybe lose a bit of torque, or potentially a bigger turbo, which of course is cool, but that's going to make it laggier, or a front-mounted turbo, which is really cool, and you don't get much lag, and you can spit flames out your front bumper. So that is kind of on the agenda of things I'd like to do before I'm 40. So the other thing that I'd like to sort out is the wheels and tyres on this. So you'll notice there's a bit of a stretch on the tyre. I didn't want that. I'm not trying to look like I am a 14-year-old boy in a Clio. Bad man. I'm not interested in that, but we had to do it to get the arch clearance that we need to do at the front. So what I'd actually like to do with this car is actually go for a smaller wheel and a taller tyre profile. So I'm going to try and sort that out next year at some point, and then it should be an absolute proper riot. Because the weak spot on this car, without a shadow of a doubt, is those tyres. I mean, I'm not going to show you what they look like under there. There's not a lot of tyre left on the inside because someone likes to go into corners like this. Why not go round? Me. So that's the inside of it. It's quite a bonny thing, isn't it? just have another look at the outside because it is arousing. So the last thing I kind of want to run through just before we wrap up here, because I know if you're not into Imprezas, this is a little bit dull for you, but the suspension on this car. So I went to town on the suspension, and I'm going to have to use my list because I cannot for the life of me remember what I did here. Ooh, right. So it has got the white line catalogue. When I ordered everything on this car, the owner of the suspension company rung me. I know it starts to sound like a brag is this, but I promise it isn't. It got out of hand, and I'm quite proud of it. My stupid mistake. So it's got white line coilovers, anti-roll bar drop links, anti-roll bars front and rear, anti-roll bar rear bushes, anti-roll bar brackets, steering rack bushes, trailing arm bushes, adjustable lateral suspension arms, wishbone bushes, track rod ends, max caster strut tops. It's got a Kuso H-brace underneath, so when you see it on the track, it looks like something's falling off it. A strut brace on the top, and then when I had it all done, I had it four-wheel aligned and corner weighted with me in it about 2 stone ago. So that probably needs redoing. But anyway, the suspension setup is phenomenal, as I'm sure you can imagine. The more I talk about it, and this is the odd thing about being a car enthusiast, anyone reading this list would be reading it going, you complete idiot. And I'm sure that there's people watching this going, you're a complete idiot. And a little part of me thinks I'm a complete idiot. But as I'm reading through this, as I'm talking about it, I'm genuinely getting more passionate about it. I want to buy a front mount turbo. I want to put some drag slicks on it and see how quick we can go from 0 to 60. So let's pop some drive shafts. Let's have a laugh. And that is the joy about car enthusiasm, isn't it? Yes, I could have a rental property, pay me £8,000 a year, which would be really, really nice. However, instead, I've got something a bit special, something that nobody else has. And that is the joy of the individuality of modifying cars. You could spend £5 on a car. No one else has got exactly what you've done. And that's why I like modified cars. And that's why I do not regret building this Subaru Impreza. I hope you've enjoyed that. We're going to get it out next year so you can see it on the track, hopefully. We'll do some launches, hopefully. We'll break some bits. But I just wanted to introduce you to my lifelong friend, this Subaru. Cheers.